So thank you again for coming to the session, Migration and Best Practices from Legacy ITSM Systems to ServiceNow. So my name is Samir Mohammed. I'm the practice lead at AQL Technologies. AQL is a Microsoft, is a ServiceNow partner and a specialist partner. And we've been doing ServiceNow for the past 5 years, been part of a lot of migrations. With that being said, I'm going to let Rizwan introduce himself before I jump over to the next slide.
Hello, everybody. This is Rizwan Ansari. I am Senior ServiceNow Implementation Lead with AQL Technologies with over a decade and a half in the industry.
Thank you, Rizwan. So a little about AQL Technologies. We are Microsoft and ServiceNow partners. ServiceNow a specialist partner, and we've been doing ServiceNow in line with what I said for the past 5 years. Provide ServiceNow services both to commercial as well as federal side, and around 50 plus successful implementations, hundreds of satisfied clients, 50 plus employee sites who are ServiceNow experts and certified as well. So I would also want to just go ahead and talk real quick about our managed services program. This is the program, the managed services professional services, which we provide on the ServiceNow platform, and a lot of clients use this for their platform maintenance services. Holds a lot of relevance because the thing is that while you're developers and while your team is busy working on ServiceNow implementation, the platform needs to be optimized. It needs to be made sure that there's proper administration, proper governance, integrations, migrations, monitoring, optimization, and let's not forget the most important thing, which is upgrades. So we have 3 different packages: silver, gold, and platinum. And the platinum package takes care of everything ranging from platform maintenance to customizations and integrations as well. Also, here's a hire developer service from AQL where we provide both onshore as well as offshore developers, and all of these developers are certified, ServiceNow certified, maybe administration side, maybe development side, or maybe implementation sides. So these are all certified developers. And with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the agenda today. We're going to go ahead and review the different ITSM software platforms in the market, ranging from Cherwell, Remedy, and more. And then after that, we're going to talk about, just briefly review the ServiceNow platform, what makes it better than all these other ITSM tools. And after that, it's going to be all talk about migration, where there's going to be, and after that, discussions about real world AQL migration case studies. We're going to talk about challenges. We're going to talk about, all the different metrics which makes a migration successful. And then finally, questions. So a lot of different ITSM tools in the market, ranging from ServiceNow, Cherwell, BMC Remedy, which is one of the bigger competitors, SolarWind, Jira Software, Freshworks, Ninja, Salesforce. So there's a whole bunch of ITSM tools. But there's something about ServiceNow which makes it much better than anything else. And let's go ahead and review some of those things. It's pretty simple and it's intuitive. It's a solid platform. It's got all these different workflows ranging from IT, employee, customer workflows, suite of products ranging from ITOM, SPM, CSM, HRSD, SecOps. And integrations is pretty simplified using the integration hub as well. So there's a lot of different services. And I'm going to go ahead and just talk about, the core services real fast before we jump into the migration side. Ranging from CMDB and, the Now platform in itself, the Now mobile, the benchmarks, and, incident and problem management, change and release, request, asset and cost, walk-up experience agent. So other than that, the Pro version and the enterprise version. So this kind of platform, there are other tools as well, like BMC Remedy and Jira and Cherwell. But the thing is that in a lot of different tools, the amount of customizations that you can do to adapt the system to better needs for your organization is pretty limited. The platform is pretty limited, whereas ServiceNow offers all of these different features for customizing the system to your needs. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Rizwan. Rizwan, please go ahead and get started with the migrations. Let's talk about some real migrations. And I'm finding a way to share the screen with you. You should be able to share the screen now, Rizwan.
Thanks, Amir. So let me know if you can see my screen here.
I can see your screen.
All right. Thanks, Amir. So yeah, let's have a look at AQL's time-tested migration process we developed. So this process is in alignment with the ServiceNow's best practices and recommendation, which ensures that your migration is a success and has a good adoption. The process starts with preparation. Believe me, if the preparation is not done thoroughly, your migration could be headed towards failure. So we'll see more about it shortly. The preparation is followed by a design and build. So this phase is equally important, and the majority of your project time will be consumed in this phase. Preparation is followed by design and build. So this phase is important, and the majority of your project time will be consumed as I said in this design phase. Then you will have go live and support. So let's have a look at into each phase a little more in detail. Okay, so next is preparation. So that's the first phase in the entire process. So preparation has majorly 4 activities, where first is readiness assessment of your current state for migration. Next is establishing your governance and OCM planning. Then you'll have to conduct discovery of your core data and configuration items. And the last is a preparation of your source system for data migration. So guys, these are really critical activity, and ensure that you don't skip any of these. So let's go ahead and have a quick look at each one of them a little bit more in detail. So your migration plan should be derived from both your business objective as well as an overview of your current state. So be ready with the awareness of your service now. Define organization vision, business objectives, and success metrics to ensure that your vision and business outcomes are very well aligned with each other. So identify and then reach out to the stakeholders to evaluate your current state of readiness and initiate the training with them. So reach out to the business process owners for end-to-end ITSM process requirement. Reach out to the security team to get their requirement, and reach out to integration team, including your any third parties who are involved in your integration for the requirements. Next is to establish a governance committee to oversee your migration and transformation efforts and perform your organizational change management planning. Point of governance is to structure and streamline how your organization makes decision. So without frequent chaotic and ad hoc escalation to your senior leadership. So nobody will want that. You will need to make a decision, make decisions like what services to deliver, then like the sequence of implementation, then how to manage your upgrades. So other decisions like when to customize as opposed to adopting out of the box functionality. So people tend to over customize things. So there has to be control over what goes into customization and what you do out of the box. So the governance structure will actually set the initial baseline for your governance that you will need after your migration. So the governance committee will help assign designated owners to your ServiceNow platform, your ITSM business processes. Then it will assign lead to your IT service desk, probably a partner representative, then identify project manager and any other stakeholder that's required. So these participants and stakeholder in your governance structure should have a shared, aligned understanding of your business objective for ServiceNow. In addition to the standard project tracking, so we need to have a standard project tracking for your governance meeting. You should have a agenda, decisions, process, review of your project objectives, and improvement to process performance if needed. Governance committee must define measures of success for enterprise IT and operational objectives. So these includes KPIs and dashboard. I think we'll see that towards the end. What are those KPIs? Develop responsibly assignment metrics. Yeah, guys, this is very important as it establishes a common understanding of responsibilities and decisions among the stakeholders. Then you plan your go live communication to support adoption. So next is, along with the governance, you must build a solid organization change management plan. And I highly recommend that it should be well planned and executed, or we risk lower user adoption. So OCM addresses the people side of the change. It is a framework for managing the effect of new business process, and or the new technology. It could be a cultural or organizational structural changes within an organization. So remember, you must build a solid OCM plan which focuses on how best to maintain and improve your productivity as you transform workflow and work processes. A good plan should consider how the design of your organization and team structure might need to change, where probably what training and enablement you need to do, and how you plan communicate changes, and how to potentially mitigate the impact of organization change where possible. So you ensure that you have sufficient support from your leadership and executive sponsors for OCM. Probably assign some dedicated lead for the OCM. So you must conduct an OCM readiness assessment, so which measures how ready your stakeholders are for organizational change needed to support the ServiceNow implementation. So it's an essential part of any of your OCM program, and should be completed before you launch technical implementation. Readiness assessment generally is a survey or maybe a series of interviews, probably focus group meetings with stakeholders across your organization that measures how ready they are for the organization change needed to support your ServiceNow implementation. Then you must have OCM activities which must be reviewed in every governance meeting, so that we are pretty much in control and on track on those things. Then let's move on to discovery of core data and configuration. So don't forget that this is very much essential in identifying all required core data as early as possible. So these are the core data, which you will need generally for any of your fully functional ITSM implementation. Something like location and department. So this can be used in user records and for functions such as stock rooms. Cost center is an important core data. So you'll have assignment groups. So those are used in ITSM processes where all your packages are assigned, packages of work are assigned to your assignment groups. For example, incidents, changes. Probably you need to have incident change categories, where you'll have hierarchical list of categories used to assist incident routing. And there are many other as listed here. So like knowledge management, service catalog item, probably the system properties like color scheme, logos, time zone settings. So these are something you will need for your initial configuration. It might not be a migration, but yeah, you need these to set up your base service now. So these are all building blocks for your ITSM modules to function correctly. Probably you might have to conduct identification of assets and configuration data if you are going with ITOM along with ITSM. Strategy for configuration items using ServiceNow Discovery or third-party tools, and a strategy for service definition and mapping might be needed if you're going with ITOM along with ITSM. Moving to the next slide, which talks about discovery of source system inventory, for data migration. So this source system, it's very important. Like these are basically categorized into 3 different category of data, where you have core data, then you have configuration items, which might needs to be moved over. Then any historical data, like all the requests that were submitted for incident change and problems, so those data. So for historical data, look for modules like as I said, incidents and problem, then change, then you have service request, which gets submitted, and you have knowledge base that are there, which gets built up over the period of time, and other custom table that you might need to move over to ServiceNow from your legacy system. Next, you will do a cleanup of the data to be migrated. So analyze if you really need to migrate the historical data. So always migrate only the data that's really needed in this target system. So why load the new system with data you will never need? Better start fresh in ServiceNow without moving any historical data. So you might just export and keep your legacy data archived somewhere in a centralized repository, which can be accessed later on for any of your retention policy based on for any of your need for retention policy, then maybe a regulatory or compliance requirement. So also like for you might consider just moving some of the data like only the open items that might be needed or in the new system, or maybe everything. That depends upon your decision and you make items from a specific period of time. Like it could be maybe 6 months, 1 year, maybe 1.5, 2 year. That depends upon what data you want to move over, what your team has decided to move over. Consider excluding any item based on some categories or based on any departments you might want to consider. So look for sources that needs to be ignored totally from migration, like data from your stale processes, the process which were created in the past, but it was not not well received by everyone, or maybe not has been abandoned. So those data might be there, so that which you can totally ignore that. Pilot processes that were created that can be ignored. And so this helps us cut down your volume of data to be migrated. Then eventually, once you have cleaned up your data, you export your data from your current system and make it ready so that it can be imported into your service now. So next, let's look at the design and build phase. So we at AQL strongly recommend this implementation process. So first is the implementation, where we discuss each process to be delivered, process owner, to ensure that the process owner is clear on its operation. Schedule a meeting between the technical architects and ServiceNow experts to review the current integration and create an integration strategy for implementation. And also ensure that the internal security compliance and credential access requirements for those systems is covered as part of the strategy. Conduct your implementation workshops with process owners, selected process managers or users, and technical team member as required. Capture configurations and other decisions as stories for development. Also define, then next step will be you define your development plan. You document your user stories, review with your business users, prioritize them, and plan it within a sprint. So once you have done that, and next is your testing. So perform a full suite of testing after development is done. So you can develop these test cases in your automated test framework. So we recommended using that. So it automates most of your testing activity. So generally at AQL, we take a phase approach for service delivery, where in phase one, we will deliver all ITSM products using out-of-the-box and simple process that match your industry proven practices. So it removes all unnecessary complexity of your existing system. Next, in phase two, we will deliver increased automation and expand your service management process. So beyond the core. So it includes all other IT process that needs to be built. And in phase three, we'll move ahead with more advanced implementation like machine learning and artificial intelligence. So when you are building something in ServiceNow, so it's important you consider your best practices for it. So these customizations, I mean, best practices for customization. So these customization are broadly classified under majorly two categories, that's configuration and custom code. So means beware of excess customization. So it can build your lot of technical debt and lengthen your upgrade cycle, which prevents your ability to take advantage of new features. So go with customization only if there's clear business value and no alternate way of achieving it. So the things to consider here is that we should avoid copying objects. So instead, update object in place wherever possible, except for in service portal widget and other items to be reused anywhere across. So we should add before edit, which it means that you should, for example, add fields to form rather than change the type of existing field. When adding, just avoid using the same name that's there out of the box or same name of the methods or classes. So just avoid repeating those names. Keep the number of fields you add to a very minimum. So The more fields you add, longer it may take to load. Then use a ServiceNow no and low code capability, so wherever possible. So in use UI policies before writing any client scripts. Use flow designers over business rule scripts. Use for integration, you can use integration hub before you write any custom integration. And yeah, and any other capabilities which you are building. So you must use scope application as your default for any new custom development. Document all customizations. So that's really important. So add comments to explain when you explain why you customize as to you need to have a business justification of that, and ensure that you review all comments prior to upgrading to determine if you can revert it out of the box. So next is that create test cases for all customizations. So you should ensure that you write your thorough set of test cases and use automated test framework for that. Then we have health scans. So regularly use health scans to identify any unnecessary customizations. So next is you should initiate OCM activities. So prepare for train the trainer sessions, assign a dedicated team for internal trainers, and then identify process managers and frontline users who are good candidate for training to lead peer-to-peer training. Develop a training plan for process users. Then plan your go live communication to support your adoption. So send out emails, set up workshops, and make everyone ready for this big change. So we at AQL support this OCM training by creating various training documents, even videos, instructions, and we conduct workshops with the users and the process owners, so they are pretty much ready with this change.
Share the screen. By the way, just going back to what Rizwan just said about customization, the best practices about customization, and that's immensely important. You know, making sure that you have business smart customizations policy defined in your governance document. And a governance document basically needs to have what kind of customizations are supposed to be are supposed to be done, and how do you control those customizations? Are you having audits? Are you having to review these customizations? Because out of the box customizations as much as possible are going to be very easy. Let's not forget, when it comes down to migrations or upgrades, when you're upgrading from older version to newer versions, all the weekend time you're spending, all that, possibly frustration as well if not done customizations the ServiceNow way. So with that being said, Rizwan, go ahead, please.
So next step in your entire migration process will be planning go live and the support, eventually supporting it. So you must carefully plan your cutover strategy with dates like making a system read only. So it is a date where your legacy system is set to read only, so that no new requests can be submitted into it. So probably you want to allow existing tickets to be worked through the system instead of carrying them over to ServiceNow. Next is you have to define ticket closure date, so where all tickets should be closed in your legacy system. So allow a 2-week period for closure. So at this point, like your legacy system should be set to complete a read only, where nothing is happening over there. Then that third date is to redirect the redirection date for any customization or any third-party system that's pointing to old system, so that it should point to now new ServiceNow implementation. Next is like for the core data migration, you must identify the optimal date for migration based on rate of change you anticipate in this date. So aim for a period with low change expected. So although you have set the system read only, but in some cases we might have to keep that open for period of duration while you are doing the migration. So consider a range which is where you anticipate very low update to the data. Then you have so after you're done with the core data migration, so you have to plan your historical data migration in a phased manner. For example, you plan a migration of your definitely foundation data was done, then you will migrate your incident data probably, and then just ensure everything is gone to new system. Then you can plan another phase for problem, then change, knowledge, and so on. So also like so moving ahead, you have to ensure that ensure your technical readiness for the go live. So whether enough staff have met the training requirements. So then how successful was your OCM activity, and what's your readiness status for it. Then whether you have any competing issues that might arise, or priorities that will distract the stakeholders. So you should consider those things. Then how ready are your third party with this go live? So that's pretty important. So because any system that's connected to ServiceNow, or any system with ServiceNow should be connected, that had that those system has to be ready for this change. Otherwise, our implementation will not work properly. So assess whether there will be an operational downtime and plan accordingly. Next is plan your go live. Ensure that you have 24/7 support available at least for next 2 to 3 days after your go live. So, and then you provide your hypercare for a period of at least 2 weeks or more as needed, as decided by your governance committee, to address any issues or bugs. Next step will be that you plan your transition. You will transition your ownership of support from implementation team to your internal ServiceNow platform team. Transition your governance to the appropriate team. Then you also put a process in place for reporting your bugs and providing support and resolution. So once you're done with all these things, you will move ahead with your formal project closure. So I think let's see some real stuff in action. So I have a sample dump for incidents, which I have created, which I will import into ServiceNow. Just give me a moment so that I can share that screen.
And one of the things about ServiceNow is everybody knows it's expensive. It's a little expensive than all the other ITSM tools, but then it provides this ease of use and integrations and a solid platform for doing all kind of business process implementation. So, and that's really what I see: 100% suite of products under one roof, and that's really what ServiceNow takes pride in. And then 50% integrations, 50% ease of use, and 50% others. I would be very curious to know what those others are. With that being said, Rizwan, go ahead, please. You can go ahead and share your screen.
This is a sample data export from other system. So it could look something like that. So this is data for your incident, so which has everything related to incident, like description, short description, urgency, caller, categories, subcategories. So all this information are there, the company and any CMD, CI relationship to it. So I'll import this into ServiceNow. So I'm in a native view of ServiceNow. So I'll just go to load data. I'll search for import sets and click on load data. So let's give some name to that import. Choose a file. So just specify the sheet number. I just have one sheet here, so it will be also one. Submit. So this is imported. So there are 67 records in there. So I click on import sets. So let's just open this over here. The rows which got imported. So I'll have to create a transform for this, which maps your data, source data with your ServiceNow table. So let's name that transform. So the source table is the one which we just created, where we imported our uh, Excel file. Then we need to select the target, which is incident in this case. All right, so press submit. So once this is done, click on Transform Maps. So this is the one which we just created. Let's open that. So we can either manually map the source and the destination fields. So you select from here and then the source and the target, or you can do smart mapping by just selecting the auto map option there. For the sake of the demo, I'll just do the auto mapping. So it will find the matching field and map it together. So, okay. So these are fields that got mapped. So we have source field, we have target fields, and coalesce is a kind of identity field, which so we'll set the number as that field. We'll make it as true. Okay, so once we are done with the mapping and ensuring that we have all the necessary transform mapping done, so we'll run the transform. So before we do that, so this is a straightforward map, but you have option to write your custom script, which will do your much more advanced mapping during this transformation. So this is the option where you can do that. So let's move ahead with the transform. Okay, I'll click on transform, which will start a transformation. So that's done. Let's look at the history over here. So we see that total 17 were inserted out of 67, and there are some issues and errors. So you can open it here and look at the errors, and you can keep go by one and try to resolve them. There might be different reasons for why it failed. Maybe some data format issue, or so it can be many issues if you have not done the mapping correctly. So this is the import log, which shows you the complete history of the import, or a log of the import. Okay, so let's look at the data that got imported. So yeah, so this is the data that we just imported. I mean, it has all the information associated with it that got imported into ServiceNow as incident. Did it open up? All right, so so we have this short description, and any other fields that were mapped coming in over here. So yeah, that's all in the demo side. So let's move ahead with the rest of the presentation. Just give me a second. I'll share my other manual approach where you export and import from source to this target system. But using these tools can reduce a lot of your efforts. It can directly pull data from your source system and push it to your target system. So a lot of automation can be done over there. Then here are some of the KPIs where which helps you measure your success. Means we have like different categories of KPI, like modern as IT, service management, taking control of application, projects and financial KPIs, then service outages, real-time security threats, uh, employee experience, customer issues, resolving the customer issues real fast, performance with optimize your performance with real-time analytics. So these are pretty much very exhaustive KPI which you can consider developing so that you can measure how successful your migration has been, and then your later on complete operations. So thanks guys for your time. So I will let Samir walk you through the rest of the presentation. So over to you, Samir.
Thank you, Rizwan. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, thank you, Ron. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few case studies. So AQL's been doing migrations for quite some time, and we have done quite a few migrations. So some of the migrations, so this is a case study which is Remedy to ServiceNow. So maybe Remedy to ServiceNow, maybe Cherwell to ServiceNow, maybe Seminich to ServiceNow, maybe ServiceNow to ServiceNow, maybe Jira to ServiceNow. So there's a method to the madness over here, guys, and you want to make sure migrations are tough. Migrations are not easy. You know, they look easy, they look tough, but they are, you know, they are pretty tough. You got to make sure that you get it done and you get it done right the first time itself. So some of these migrations, so I have some metrics over here around this migration. So the product that this client was using, it's a food manufacturing industry, and they were using ITSM and ITOM. It's a greenfield migration. We moved everything over from Remedy over to ServiceNow, help them set up governance as well. And the migration time period was run about 5 months, a user base of 3,000, and then migrating problem, knowledge, incident, change requests, service catalog requests, etc. from ServiceNow. And this was a tool-based migration using the mechanism that Rizwan has just showed you. Yes, that's one way of doing things. You can go ahead and export everything out of any of these tools and then import it over to ServiceNow using the transform maps. That's one way of doing things. But then there are some few good tools that Rizwan has just shown as well, like maybe Precision Bridge, maybe ZigOps, maybe Perspective. So these are some of the tools. We use Precision Bridge. They do a decent job of helping with migrations. You can just go ahead and move quite some data over from any of these systems over to, as long as they're compatible with the source system, to ServiceNow. Okay, and then integrations as well. So integrations to Workday. So Remedy had a lot of integrations to Workday, Microsoft Teams, Okta, SAP systems, and more. So we developed integrations over here using the integration hub, and then implemented virtual agents, implemented ITOM discovery and service mapping, and then help the client with training and adoptions. So the number of records. Now, one of the questions that I just saw over here is, hey, what are the best practices around migrations? So what ServiceNow recommends is having a clean cut. One of the toughest thing is you have a system, an ITSM legacy system, and your whole company's been using it. Now, talking about moving it from that system to this system, there's of course going to be a little bit of resistance, and there's going to be a learning curve as well. So what ServiceNow recommends is having a clean cut, not to bring any data except for problem and knowledge base. Okay, and making sure pointing your source system more to the destination system. That's what ServiceNow recommends. But using some of these tools, you might be able to bring in some of the historical data as well. So that's one of the best practices. Try doing a very clean cut. Try cleaning up your source system as much as you can, and then try migrating only the least amount of data from your source system or to the destination system. Some of the challenges over here are that we face were because migrations, when it comes down to migrations, there's quite a few challenges. One of the biggest challenges is the stakeholders, trying to find the right time for doing these things done. And once you have that, then trying to make sure that you're coordinating with the right stakeholders, resolving any kind of user issues, user assignment, any kind of issues. ServiceNow learning curve for the clients, maybe, and this is one of the things that we have always seen. You got to make sure that you have proper workshops, proper training, proper, videos, however you do it, there's got to be proper trainings and adoption methods. And then, always in lines with what I said, the biggest challenge that we had was making sure that we were doing as much of cleanup of the source inventory system as possible. And then this client was also geographically spread, so which basically means that different time zones, you gotta get in touch with different resources all around the world. So it's pretty challenging. Good thing is that AQL has got both onshore and offshore resources, and we were able to adjust to all different time zones. Redevelopment customization, that's always one of the biggest challenges. If you coming from a lot of these different systems, and what I've seen over the years is developers tend to be developers, which is they want to go ahead and start using custom code as much as possible. And also client wants to see a lot of fancy stuff as much as possible. But just in lines with upgrades, you want to make sure that your customizations are as easily upgradable as possible. So, and that is why you need to make sure that you have these ServiceNow experts who understand what is built within ServiceNow instead of redeveloping the wheel again. So try using out of the box as much as possible. And then custom service portal, that's something that we have done a lot, and customizing the entire service portal. And as long as you can make sure that it is in lines with the ServiceNow's vision of upgrades, you should be okay. And recreating catalog items and then integrations is always, one of the challenges. So these are some of the challenges that we come across, a lot of different, migrations that we have done. So being considerate of the time, we have 6 more minutes. So second migration, Cherwell to ServiceNow, this was a manual migration time frame, around about 4 months, redevelopment, customizations, integrations with several different systems, implementing ITOM and ITSM, and then trainings and adoptions. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead and review some of the questions that we have received here. Give me a second. Yeah, how SLAs in the legacy system will be mapped into destination, original dates and users, history information will carry forward to ServiceNow. Rizwan, do you want to take that question?
Sure, Samir. So that's a good question. So generally we tend to have that curiosity as to how to do that migration. So some information like created date, modified date, internal IDs. So these are auto-generated. So those cannot be migrated. But all other information can be exported definitely from your source system to ServiceNow. So your export should have all relevant information to identify your SLA with your corresponding task and incident records. So your source export should have those information. So once you create an export from the source system, it can be definitely imported into ServiceNow into its respective SLA table with all the necessary transform map you need for it. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. Question 2, how do the in-progress SLAs work after migration?
I will recommend moving your in-progress items. So before you cut over, we suggest to have a window where, as I said in my presentation, that you should have your source system set to read only, and only once you are close all your items, you should move over your items to destination system. So during this window, like you will work on all your new tickets that were created before the read-only mode that was set to the source system. And once those are closed properly, and meanwhile you're working on this and your target system to make it live. So yeah, we just move over those closed item over to new system. I would suggest that.
Okay. Question 3, give me a second. Workflow needs to be recreated in ServiceNow, or is there a way to export the flow process from source system? So do the workflows need to be recreated in ServiceNow, or is there a way to export the workflows from the source system?
That's so every system has their own workflow engine, like how they've built. They use different technology to do that. So exporting that into and importing it to ServiceNow is definitely not technically feasible to do that. Possible. So yeah, you can definitely export all your tasks from your source system to your ServiceNow. That can be definitely done, like using either transform map or using any of your tools, automation tool to move that data. But yeah, a workflow will have to be developed in ServiceNow, from scratch.
Okay. Yeah, there's some really interesting questions, some practical questions that we have come across through migrations. One of the other question is, do the KB article metrics like counts, comments, version history, is there any way that they'll be migrated to ServiceNow from any of these source systems?
So not all information might be needed to be migrated as I see. So we suggest to narrow down all these on the content that you need to migrate. So just migrate only important data to the new system. I feel that data like count will not be that important as compared to your actual items. So just move those main item, and these data can be just left over, cannot be moved. We should not move that. But as long as you are able to export those information from your source system, I think we can definitely import it in ServiceNow. But I would not recommend moving those smaller items. Yeah, comments for for any tickets, yeah, that will be moved over as part of your process. That can be done. A version history of any item, no, I wouldn't suggest, because generally, like, you just move over your final version of that item to ServiceNow.
Okay. Another question, you talk about, resolving users as one of the challenges. How do you resolve users from source to destination?
Generally, like, as part of your initial configuration, you will already have all your users in your ServiceNow, because that's the foundation data, as we saw in the presentation. So where you have to do your move your foundational data into ServiceNow and do your base configuration. So once that's done, so you move over any data from your source to destination, and using transform map, we can definitely map it, like how we saw in the demo, where I imported incident. So it mapped the user information properly with my source with my ServiceNow system. So that's how we do it.
Well, thank you, Rizwan, and thank you, everybody. I think that we're running out of time over here. There seems to be a few more questions. We'll try posting the answers to those questions on the AQL blog. And once again, thanks, everybody, and feel free to reach out to us.